In July of 2018, a young man named Fadhil left his home in Indonesia to work as a deckhand on a high-seas fishing vessel, a Chinese squid jigger called the Weiyu-18. He was 25 years old, venturing out to sea for the first time. Fadil boarded the Weiyu-18 at the port of Busan, South Korea, where he joined a crew of 9 other Indonesians and 20 Chinese. From Busan, the rusty red and white steel-hulled ship traveled for several weeks to South America to work the high seas fishing grounds off the coasts of Peru and Chile. Working in 12 to 24-hour shifts, the men typically slept during the day and worked at night, since squid fishing requires using extremely bright light bulbs to lure the animals towards the surface.
Jadi kita berdiri dari jam 6 sore sampai jam 6 pagi itu kita harus berdiri terus. Jadi, iya, terkadang kami duduk gitu. Kalau seandainya tidak ada mandornya gitu. Tapi kalau seandainya ada mandornya kami berdiri karena pasti kena marah gitu. Tapi banyak kan mereka marahnya hanya orang Indonesia saja, kru dari Indonesia.
Jaga. Okay.
On the ship, the men slept 4 to a room in wooden bunk beds, each with one blanket on a soggy foam mattress made wet by walls that sweated with condensation. The Indonesian crew was provided drinking water that was rust-colored and tasted like metal, while their Chinese counterparts drank bottled water. Indonesian deckhands were only given salt water for bathing and washing their clothes, and for rations they were given rice and instant noodles. Violence on board the Weiyu-18 was common. The men described the foreman and the captain hitting them on the head and slapping and kicking them, usually for not understanding instructions given in Chinese, taking too long to untangle a fishing line, or dropping squid on the deck. By August of 2019, after being at sea for over a year, the Weiyu-18 was gripped by an outbreak of beriberi, a debilitating and painful form of malnutrition caused by a lack of vitamin B1, also known as thiamine. Symptoms include full body swelling, intense fatigue, and if left untreated, death. Experts say that allowing workers on fishing ships to contract and die from beriberi constitutes criminal neglect, because the disease is so easily prevented through proper nutrition or vitamin pills, and can be treated when it occurs. As over a third of the world's fish stocks have collapsed or are on the verge, fishing fleets have begun traveling further and staying at sea longer in hopes of catching the minimum needed to remain profitable. This is especially true of Chinese squid ships that typically travel further than other vessels and stay at sea for up to 2 years. Chinese captains rely heavily on transshipment, where catch is offloaded to refrigeration vessels at sea, allowing boats to remain in the fishing grounds indefinitely. This practice greatly increases the risk of beriberi among long-range fishing vessels.
Ya sakit aneh Bu ya. Ya seluruh badan tuh bengkak gitu nah. Cuma bertahap memang. Bertahap pertama tuh dari kaki gitu kan bengkak seperti itu. Bengkaknya tuh hampir sama seperti kaki gajah seperti itu.
Too weak to work, Fadil stayed in his quarters while the other Indonesian deckhands took turns checking on him. He became too tired to sit up, and he vomited any food or water he consumed. For treatment aboard the Weiyu-18, Fidil was given the Chinese equivalent of ibuprofen, in packaging indicating that the medication had expired.
Sudah minta pulang gitu kan. Cuma waktu itu kapten sebenarnya tidak mengizinkan gitu. Soalnya ya mungkin kalau seandainya dia pulang kan berkurang lagi tenaga, sedangkan di kapal itu kan kami cukup kekurangan tenaga gitu sebenarnya.
The captain said Fidil could not go home because he was on a 2-year contract with the manning agency that had recruited him. But the truth was that Fadhil's contract was only for 12 months, a term he had completed just before falling ill. For the next 2 weeks, Fadhil's condition quickly deteriorated. He had trouble breathing, and he could not stand or urinate. Then came the seizures. The other Indonesian deckhands decided to move Fadhil into Ramadan's room, who was doing all he could to comfort his dying friend.
Saya sudah tidak kuat lagi, dia bilang. Cuma dia waktu itu langsung berpesan bahwa nanti kalau seandainya saya meninggal, dia bilang, tolong mayat saya harus sampai ke orang tua saya, seperti itu. Dia berpesan seperti itu. Tolong kalau seandainya saya meninggal, mayat saya harus sampai ke orang tua saya. Jam 8 pagi, sekitar jam setengah 9 saya sudah selesai mengas. Saya menanyakan kabar dia kan. Cuma waktu itu saya tidak ke kamar gitu, karena saya udah bertanya-tanya gitu kan. Fadil ini kira-kira sanggup tidak gitu. Tidak harapan seandainya seperti itu rasanya itu. Sudah betul-betul menyerah sepertinya dia kan. Nah, tiba-tiba ada salah satu kru dari Indonesia, dari teman kami, dia berteriak-teriak, Fadil, dia bilang. Jadi saya lari ke kamar. Di kamar ternyata sudah penuh orang. Dia sudah ada dari kepala kamar mesin orang Cina. Dia mengatakan, Neola itu dalam arti Indonesia itu dia sudah tidak ada lagi.
Several days after Fadil died, the captain ordered that his body be buried at sea, claiming to have received permission from Fadil's family back in Indonesia.
Ya kami sebetulnya tidak percaya gitu Bu ya. Apa mungkin gitu kan? Masa anaknya sendiri, orang tua sendiri kan? Itu tuh rela gitu kan? Anaknya dilarungkan gitu kan? Dan dia pergi kerja begitu kan?
The captain ordered the men to build a wooden coffin for Fadil's body. They filled the casket with metal weights and wrapped it in anchor chain to ensure it would sink. Fadil's body was then buried at sea.
Dari semenjak dia meninggal saja saya tidak percaya gitu. Dia itu sudah tidak ada lagi gitu kan. Dan kami rencana itu tahun 2019 itu kami merencanakan seluruh kru Indonesia itu untuk pulang semua. Cuma waktu itu kami tidak mengizinkan untuk pulang.
Fishing is the most dangerous profession on the planet. Each year, over 100,000 workers, like Fadil, die on the job. What remains unclear is how many of those deaths are from forced labor or neglect. Fadil's story is just one example of the larger problem of captivity on distant water fishing ships, and of a disease that should have been eradicated a century ago.